Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's morning here in Hawaii, and I'm Cynthia Harrison from Rhombus Healing Arts. I'm also the founder and creator of Spirit Whisperer series. We're up to Spirit Whisperer series 4, Vulnerable and Victorious. Spirit Whisperer series 4, Vulnerable and Victorious. How sensitivity became the superpower of visionaries. This is what we're going to be talking about, touching on, and sharing some tools. So those of you that have the Zoom, you can pop over. We're also on Rhombus Healing Arts Facebook and Spirit Whisperer group if you're in there. And we're going to start with the gong. We're going to start with the gong so that you have some time to come on and steady yourself, and also see who else is coming to join us today. It's an awesome day. It's an awesome day. Let me just see who is on today. So make sure you say g'day if you're on so that I can see you. And we'll have a chat. All right. Yes, there we are. There we are on. So I have put the Zoom link in the chat for social media. Otherwise, you can just come on and say g'day. All right. Preparing. Just taking a breath. And breathe out. I'll just shift the sound so that you can hear it. Welcome. I feel like saying welcome to Spirit Whisperer Series 4, but we're not quite there yet. Nearly. Not long now, but you can sign up. So let me tell you a little bit about it. And for those that watch the replay. And we're going to touch into what it's about, and maybe if you have questions, we may even do, I'm not sure, I don't really have anything planned, but lately that's been the greatest gift is, okay, there you go, showing up in my vulnerability, in my courage, in my knowing that being a spirit whisperer And we'll go into what that means in a moment, because I don't think, other than actually two people on this planet have heard me say this, and it was yesterday. So if you weren't that person, you don't know about it. And so much new information is coming in and coming up, and of course it is. Why? Because when we lean into our vulnerability, and we don't even necessarily have to take the step. Do you realize that? It's when we make the choice. That's another story too, and we may go there. Because, you know, as I speak, as I say the word, as a mystic in paradox, as I say a word, it straight away shifts to the other side, and vice versa. It's like this continually moving motion of polarity, and we sit in the center of that, or in the where they meet. So it's not necessarily a center. Okay, so I say center, and straight away I get, not necessarily a center. It is when you can speak, truly speak your truth. And everything that I say is truth and no truth at the same time. Everything you say, I will agree with you on some level, because I see the world that way. Whether I want it in my world or not, I understand that polarity and love and fear are needed for our conscious evolution, our spirit whispering. So let's just start with that, with the name. So if you want to join us, just by the way, in case I forget, spiritwhisperer.online is the link that you can go. It's free, and I have spoken with the most amazing people, and also one of those beautiful ladies from Chi Time TV and radio. I spoke with her on her show yesterday. So it's like this reciprocity of sharing about consciousness, sharing about energy. And so don't worry, Mercedes, and I can see Rebel there too. You'll get a link to that. And the beauty of it was that we spoke, and because when we speak, Clara's her name, Clara, depends on your accent. She doesn't mind either one. Clara, when we speak, the beauty of speaking with somebody else that understands energy to the depths that you do, and what happens is the energy then starts to speak, and you get into this flow. And you know, she's a qigong teacher and practitioner, and that's her life. But what came up yesterday, so a little backstory for you, you know, some of you love a story. What came up yesterday is we're talking about the series and where it came from, and we went with the energy. And every time we speak, which has been a lot, you know, she's a sister, I see her as a sister. She was on programs of mine before Spirit Whisperer. So The Arts of Healing was a series that I did many years ago, and she was on that one. So we've had a lot of in-depth conversations, and you know, worked together in different ways for many, many years now. So when you sit with somebody in that vulnerability, because I knew that she would hold the space for me to be me in my full, magnificent, shiny brainness, right? Sparkly brain person, right? I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth, where she's going to take that energy, where we're going to dance. I needed to trust for the beauty of that to come out, which I did, and she did. And afterwards, every time we speak after the interviews, we say, oh, we should have recorded that. We should have recorded that. All my conversations after the actual interviews, I used to record them and then put them as, you know, a secondary But I didn't do that this time, but she did. When we talked afterwards, she's pressed record and she said, you know, we always say this, so I'm pressing record. So we got a whole nother, and what we spoke about, we went all sorts of places that I'm sure will be healing and helpful for many of you, right? So she was asking me where this Spirit Whisperer series came from. And, you know, that is a long story because we're up to series 4. But spirit whispering is not necessarily, so maybe put in the chat, what spirit whisper, what do you think spirit whisperer or spirit whispering means? Just in a nutshell, like, is it talking to past over spirit? Is it connecting to, you know, your psychic abilities? Is it, you know, doing channeling? Is it talking to the beloved, God, the Supreme Source consciousness? Is it accessing your own spirit? What even is that? Like, I'm just going to check the chat if there's it. I can see you writing, but are you writing in the chat? And for those of you that are watching the replay, let me know, because I'm interested. And this is what we spoke about yesterday, Clara and I. She's a wordsmith like me. We play with words. My background, well, part of my background is anthropology. It was interesting because when she did my bio, it wasn't my bio. It was a page off my website that I haven't updated for a long, long time. And there is a page on Rhombus Healing Arts website that says, you know, who am I? And it's not necessarily a bio, it's like a story. And she printed that off and read it to me. And it was so interesting because I'm like, these are all aspects of me, yet none of them are me. But reading that background, because a lot of you, I don't talk about a lot of my background. There's a lot there, right? There's a lot of things. I've lived many lives in this body as Cynthia, right? And so all of that informs when I show up and I speak, all of it. So the anthropologist in me came out, and that's the meaning making. How do we make meaning? What are our beliefs? And when we look at the cultural landscape, how you speak English, if you do speak English, and maybe English isn't your first, first language, but I don't speak American English and I don't speak the Queen's English. So and then we've got Pidgin English, but then we have Pidgin English in Hawaii and Australia, and they're slightly different again. Although I can understand a little bit of both of them, because you understand? So when I say a word like spirit or whisperer or vulnerable or victorious or sensitivity or anxiety or pain or hurt, what that means to you, I'm going to say majority of the time, but there's a good possibility that it's not what I'm actually meaning. My background, my beliefs and conditioning help determine or assist in or mold how I am and how I understand myself and the world and the other, right? So how you are, and how I are, and yeah, you'll say she can't speak English because that's not grammatically correct. It is when you understand what R-ing is to me. Do you see? And when I say, do you see? What I really clearly mean for myself is, do you see, feel, sense, know, taste, smell, touch what I'm saying? With all of your ability, your sensory, your sensorial, right? Do you receive what I just said? And many human beings do not. Why? So I'll let you ponder on that while I read the chat. Let's just see what's going on. Hearing the soul's voice as in the world universe whispering. Yes. Yes and no, right? It is a yes. It's what, that's part of it. Yes, right. So this is the beauty of, what does it mean? So let me just tell you quickly, or not quickly, let me just tell you how I feel spirit whispering. What if I say I'm a spirit whisperer? I'm the spirit whisperer on this series, right? And then we have many visionaries that are coming on and sharing how they tap into an aspect of that, what I'm calling spirit whisperer. And so, and just feeling into where to start on this. Spirit could be seen as consciousness. And so when we're spirit whispering, we're consciousness, we're connecting and communing in an intimate way. So whisper. When we whisper, think about when you whisper, not all the time, but so a whisper can be a secret, right? You don't want anyone else to hear. But how I see whispering is when there's soul-to-soul connection. You don't need to speak loudly. There's this just beautiful flow. And you'll notice that when you are speaking to somebody that you have connection with, it's almost like a whisper, right? Or it's gentle. Or you're tending is a nice word, you know? And then again, what's tending mean to you? Tending to me is, I talk about tending my paintings. When I get to a point where they're not quite complete, but when are any of my paintings complete, right? They're living, moving sort of entities in themselves almost. I'm just tenderly touching in and doing the last little bits. It's like a touch-up of your lipstick, or, you know, straightening your beloved's tie just before, or you're getting the piece of lint off your child's jumper before they get onto the school bus, or, you know, it's these tender moments, tending to something that's, I was going to say delicate, beautiful, intimate, and needs tending. So if we, you know, the reason that this came up is a conversation, and I was looking at language or words to explain a little bit more about what I'm doing here on this earth. And I'm working with the human, the embodiment of soul, and then soul to spirit. These levels of consciousness. So my background, and this is why I brought up Clara, is because she was reading my background, and there was not that much of the mystical stuff in there. I mean, in my opinion, other people will read it and go, whoa, right? Because it talks about, you know, how I create, and I would, you know, see and express the geometries that I experience directly, or decoding information through creating, okay? And I used to do that for different, so I'm a teacher for, you know, a couple of different energy medicine or conscious or applied consciousness academies, right? So I would create, develop meditation tools that were based on geometry and I would say mystic science. However, you know, a lot of people understand it now. So I would call them power generators, but they weren't organs, technically. So if you don't know what an orgone is, you can Google it, O-R-G-O-N, I believe. Might be an E on the end, I'm not sure. But they're like power generators. Now, the power generators, and some of you might have them. I stopped making them, so if you do have one, keep a hold on it. I handmade them. I hand drew. I channeled the information. And the reason that, so I'm jumping around a bit. I'm going to be jumping around a bit because I'm telling a story. But how those geometries came in, I just drew them. And they're, the math in them I didn't understand. I just saw it and drew it. And I was working with a past teacher of mine. And she saw my drawings, they're in my notebook. And she said, "Where's that from?" And I said, "Oh, these are the images I draw." And I started to show her on my phone, my paintings and drawings. And she said, "They are the codes that Master Chai left her master, that she was a teacher for." Anyway, pranic healing. And I'd never met him, I'd never trained with him, right? But I was getting the information. So it was coming through me. And so we collaborated and we built I created them, into these beautiful meditation tools. And they were geometry within geometry. And I made a few different types of meditation tools. They're almost like jewels, and some you could wear. And one was called what was the last one called? It was the rhombus shape, because my business is Rhombus Healing Arts. And again, most people don't know why I called it rhombus, or why there's the blue star in there. Technically a white star, blue, right? But it's all to do with the human's conscious creative evolution, and what you see along the way, what you experience along the way. And that's what was shown to me. As a mystic, I was receiving the information, right, and bringing it into the world through those processes. So where was I going with that? Geometries, the way that we can use technology, we could say ancient technologies, or non-digital technology, right? To create or to assist people to access on this screen you can't see the blue, but on Instagram you can see the blue star. But most of you have seen the blue behind me, that's why it's there. But also on Rhombus Healing Arts, that's the banner and all of that. You'll see that I created that, digitally created that from what I see and experience in my everyday life, right? So many of you may see that. Many of you, especially if you've been a student of mine, right, you start to see and access the blue, and then you'll get glimpses of the star, or the white dots, right, that you can access. They're gateways. It is the gateway, right? So this is what accessing consciousness, through viewing these objects, meditating with them. The orgone helps clear energy, but the power generators build their own energy from you being with them. So every time you have them in your field, they shift and change the field, but it's like this reciprocity. Anyway, so it's different, slightly different to an orgone, and how I program them, and the materials that I'm using, and how it's built. No worries, Rebel. It's fine. You can just kick back and listen. She can't get a video going. And the high vibe jewel. And jewel, that was the pendant. I think I do have one. I'll see. I don't think I bought one to Hawaii. I'll see in my, I didn't bring many, but there might be one there. I'll show it to you at some point. But you could probably Google on I've probably shown on the Facebook groups at some point when I used to sell them, you'll see. But they were developed with liquid plasma and a particular geometry that I'll show you maybe, I'm not sure when. Remind me, if you want to know about it, remind me, and I'll describe and tell you why that geometry is particularly important. And just having it in your field shifted it. So we used to test this. Because I had the biofield viewer and other technology that we were developing. So I went to the UK, and friends of mine assisted in giving me access to the university's workshops and whatnot, the laser cutters and whatnot. So Carl, who used to be the director of that place, he bought a lot of my work. He bought a lot of my drawings, a whole series of drawings of these geometries and whatnot, because he would see them and he had an understanding, see the meaning making. He understood what they were, and he said, I want the whole series. He bought the whole series. So they're in his art collection, which I'm thankful for, because they won't be broken up, right? And so he gave me access because he understood, and he bought those high vibe jewels. He was one of the first to buy them. But we also were developing technology to be able to see energy and experience energy through digital and virtual and extreme realities. So it was this ancient wisdom with really cutting edge modern technologies, as informing both. And so that's a whole nother part of my life that talking with Clara yesterday, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's right, I did that, right? Because as we get older, it's like a long time ago now. Well, it wasn't that long ago, but maybe 9 years ago, 8 years ago. So geometries, high vibe jewel. So high vibe jewel, Joule. Joule. Do you know what jewel means, or jewel is? Joule. Google it. Google it, let me know. No, jewel is to do with charge, voltage, electricity. So actually, I think it was last week I talked about voltage, didn't I? Or the week before, I was talking about charge and voltage, and again in the series, I touch on a lot of this stuff. We have many guests coming on, visionaries, who have lent into their vulnerability to create and to become who they are today and how they are in the world, right? So are there any, let me just check the Restream chat, because I can't see it right now. I'm going to put it up so I can see. So if you're on any of the platforms, the Facebook platforms, you can ask me questions and whatnot. So Restream's actually working awesome today. Woohoo! All right, so I'm going to try and toggle these so in case there are any questions, but I'm going to keep my eye on Zoom. So Spirit Whisperer, consciousness communing. And so I'm doing another loop now. Can you see how I roll? I do loops. So I touch in, I go on a story, I touch in, I go on a story. So I'm coming back to the loop of Spirit Whisperer, this consciousness, and how we can access different different states. So some of you may or may not know that I'm a psychotherapist, and we look at different states. And when particularly sensory and sensory motor and somatic, right? So utilizing the body's intelligence to move that through, to heal, to bring awareness to that state of consciousness, that piece of consciousness that is connected to maybe a piece that is your blind spot or an unmet need from childhood. And you could call that the attachment relationship, or how you attuned to primary caregivers. So I've touched on this in the past, but when we bring it to consciousness, right? So if I say, what is something that's challenging you at the moment? You bring that to mind, and then you drop it into the body, right? We can activate that or reactivate it, not to re-traumatize you. If it's trauma, big T trauma, it will be slightly different, right? But we're touching in, and your body will tell me. So some people will see that the energetic work and the more I guess psychology or the medical sort of based work is different. There's no difference, because it's spirit whispering. It's accessing consciousness. What is consciousness? We don't even really know. Google it. I keep saying Google it. I'm not doing an ad for Google, but look it up, because nobody agrees on what it is. So I say aspects of self. You'll hear me say that all the time. These aspects of self. When you're in the body, and who you are is within the physical, and how you are in the physical can determine how you live. Well, does determine how you live. And another word, trance. I heard this, so I was in some training last weekend, and it was more science-based training, but they're talking about trance. And because I teach trance healing, trance channeling, when other people say trance, I could go there. But is that what they're really talking about? Because they started to talk about people being in trance, walking through their life in trance. So how conscious are you? How awake are you in your everyday life? Or are you in this sort of trance-like state? Now, some of you that have studied with me are going, well, that's not trance. But it's like this hypnotic state, I guess you could say. You know, when you're, some of you know that when I would drive over bridges, my peripheral vision is really good. And actually, just on that note, practicing expanding your peripheral vision actually helps expand your perception of more than what you can already see, right? So when I'm driving, my peripheral vision is very good. So I see this, and it brings in information. It's like trance. It's not a deep trance, but it's enough repetitive movement that I can see in my peripheral that I start to have that. So I'm very used to it, so it's all right, but don't try it yourself. I'm not taking responsibility for any of that. You know, But it also happens when I do any repetitive, like on the treadmill, if I'm walking, or even, sometimes when I was jogging, and it's repetitive. It's because that's how you can go into trance. And I would get information. Many of you know a lot of my drawings and whatnot, so I'd be on the treadmill drawing and doing these awesome geometries, because in that state, even though I was moving, I was receiving, right? So what state of consciousness was I in? What state am I in right now? When I bring to mind something that might be upsetting from my past, or a need that wasn't fulfilled from early childhood, I wasn't heard, or I wasn't attended to enough, or I wasn't, for some of you, may have neglect and all sorts of, right? When you bring one of those things to mind, like, okay, I wasn't heard, or I wasn't seen, or I didn't feel like my life, I didn't matter. I didn't matter, right? Or, insert yours. So as I'm talking, I can see you thinking. I can see you going there to some degree. And if I dropped you in, or you dropped yourself in, you're going to shift slightly. Remember so some of you know this, some of you don't. So I'm going to sort of backtrack a little bit. We have our general state, what I call our general state of consciousness. But we're flipping in and out of all these. So when we eat something, when we drink something, everything here shifts our state. Right? So when people use the word, you're never going to think of consciousness the same again, are you? Like you have a sip of your tea, something. Do you understand? It's like, and then there are these more in-depth states. So revision for some of you, right? That we can tap in through our body, utilizing our physical body as that instrument to shift into different states of consciousness. And that's why I describe, it's like all of these, hey Deb, better late than never. She's on Instagram. That's why we describe, or I do, that they're aspects of myself. They're different aspects of myself that are integrated at different levels. Because ultimately, you are all of that. Yet there are these, what's that word? It's not, levels sounds boring. It's like these demarcating, or points along the journey. It's like, oh, well, now I'm here. And so, are we in a light trance, a medium trance, a deep trance? And what does that mean? Or are we just living our life in this subliminal trance state? We're talking about this yesterday. Eric and I were talking about this subliminal. It's like the world is in this subliminal cult. This subliminal state of being told what to do, and people are just doing it, right? So we watched this thing on Netflix. It was really interesting. I don't particularly want to give them any airtime, but nothing was proven. But you can watch it yourself. It's called, what was it called? Twin Flame Academy, or Twin Flame, something like that. Anyway, we were watching it, looking at how, and we laughed at a lot of it because it's like, you know, they do similar things to a lot of us, right? The difference is, if you watch it, you'll see that I don't want to comment on it in that way. You make your own, right? But people were doing what they said to the letter. Do you remember? I would say, well, so those of you that don't know and haven't studied with me, I will tell you. I will. It's not tell you. I will express to you that everything I say is a suggestion, is a option, is another piece of information for you to bring into what you already know. It's not about me saying you have to do this, and if you don't do this, blah blah blah, right? Which is what other people, it's sort of what happens. There's this power over, and and how it impacts and comes into your life, right? So if the reason I'm bringing that up is not because I want you to watch it. I mean, watch it or don't watch it, whatever. But just be aware that there are a lot of people out there that they speak it well, but they are not in no way doing what they say they're doing. And people are so wanting love and so wanting connection that they fall into groups that are maybe not so healthy for them. Let me just say that, because we can't necessarily say those people in particular. So I'm referencing that group just to say, there were people being led by that group, and it's the same as being led by society for many. And that trance-like state of wanting something so badly that you'll do anything, even to your detriment. So there is a loss, and it's one thing that you'll never get with me. You'll never get in any of my programs if you ever lose your way to that. Like, I will be bringing you back personally. Like, it's not about you following the guru or following, right? The guru is within you, right? I facilitate. The human as a species has the innate intelligence to heal. What is in the way may need some support to help lift that boulder from out front of the cave that maybe you found yourself in, or whatever analogy you want to, or to, you're standing toe to toe with the shadow on the wall. And the wall is what you built yourself. And you may just need a little, how you help somebody to get on a horse. Anyway, maybe you don't. Maybe you're city dwellers, but, or you give them a leg up to look over the wall. That's what we do. We give you support to be able to see and be and are who you are, not who I want you to be or who somebody else wants you to be. It's this excavation of yourself so that you can have a very intimate relationship with the self. And many want to have that relationship with the self, or, soul to spirit, and they do not have a relationship with yourself, the physical, and there's not the embodiment. So going back to the name Spirit Whisperer, it all links. Can you see the links? It's like, I'm not just pulling a name out of a hat. This is the landscape of what we do. and what we bring to these series, and the opportunity for you to hear from many different people and their perspectives, so that you can see, oh, well, maybe that person has, I feel more aligned with that person or that person or that, or, oh, that, with what Cynthia said, opens that up in a whole nother way, or whatever, right? It's about your, or the humans' exploration, and inviting you to be curious about everything, about your physical, about your energy. So I whisper to the energy, and somebody says they've got a pain, or something going on with their physicality to a certain degree, but they've got a pain, and they feel it's more subtle energy related. All right. Whispering that is asking. It could be scanning, but they usually tell me, right? That energy tells me. It's this intimate connection with the energetics on such a subtlety that it's like it just says, this meridian, that chakra, this muscle's irregular, this one's doing this. Right? It's so... And then I'm not telling you, I'm just sharing. I'm just sharing. This is what I'm getting. Would you like to go further with that? Would you like to, I'll give you something to do, or I'll do a protocol for you in a session, right? How's that feel? What else? And I'm listening, because as you're doing it, I'm being shown, right? And when I say shown, again, it's another word, with all my senses. Sometimes I'll taste it, smell it, hear it, see it with my physical eyes, see it with my mind's eye, feel it in my body, whatever, right? So when we're spirit whispering, it's physical as well. Because your experience here on the earth is a physical one also. Otherwise, you're only addressing half or a piece of who you are. And, without a vessel, without a vehicle, without a container, technically you're dead. Do you get me? So, embodied, disembodied. Without a container, you're disembodied, right? Some people don't like that word, but it's just a simple way of saying your soul in a body, or you've left and you're in the ethers. And then we'll be contacting you through other means, right? Through our intuition, through our psychic or mediumship or trance or channeling abilities, yeah. Or creative abilities, right? It's part of the creativity is connecting as the paper or the canvas as the portal to get your own, receive your information, be shown, be directed, be guided. So just on that, I've added an extra piece to Spirit Whisperer series. Starts 1st of December. But the first video will be just a little one from me inviting you to do a small creative experience through the series if you wanted to. And we're going to create what I'm calling Spirit Whisperer Oracle Deck, or Spirit Whisperer Deck. Now, in the Psi program, that's what we do with the teachings. we bring some of the teachings in. I've talked about this with some of you, but so you don't have to, it's optional, but some of you, and I'm always looking for ways to integrate. This is what it's about. I'm always looking for ways. Okay, so do you need to write it, draw it, move it, sing it, dance it, speak it? How do you bring that information in to embody it? You're not just watching a video or someone speaking on a screen, right? How can you bring it, embody it into a direct experience? A mystic's aim is to give you a direct experience, even if it's just like what some of you did before when I said about thinking about something. You went there. I saw your faces. Some of you on these other platforms, I can't see you, but the ones on Zoom, I can see your faces. And you went there, right? You experienced it in some way. Now that's more of a what we might say the human, like the human, the lower aspects, you know, the physical human, right? And then we get to this place where we cross over, right? Which I talked about the 5 the other day, that transition, that threshold space where we go to the more expansive sort of, we could say consciousness or experiences or within the life of the human. So the 1 to 5 or the 1 to 4 is incarnation, negative mind, positive mind, neutral mind, right? To the physical body is 5 in our spiritual bodies, in that particular understanding, right? There's lots of ways to understand this stuff, and that's what we teach inside, but that's a whole another thing. But that's why we have the cards, right? So look at my awesome deck already. There's 2 different decks here, right? So, you know, if you want to come along with us, then the ones that I can see are already signed up, so woohoo! And you know, you can always watch the replay and do it at a later date, or you can just show up with your pen and paper and just take a couple of notes, because there's information in all of them. There's something, like not everybody will be for you, maybe, I don't know. I enjoyed every conversation, right? Some have more energetic techniques. Some have, you know, they're all slightly different. There's, you know, they're all entrepreneurs in some respect, but some are more like leadership coaching type area. You know, we've got energy, like very advanced. So we've got Madison King, who I love her, and I love them. Like a lot of them are very, very close. They're like family to me. So what we discuss and what we share is worth the click of the button, because it's free, people. No cost, that means. Just in case you don't know what free means, right? What does free mean to you? It means it's my offering to you. If you want the VIP, there is the VIP. So just because there's not that many, I don't know how many is on the other social media, but just for some of you, and the ones I can see have already done it. Because I was thinking about this morning, because that VIP is $47, right? And there's a 35-minute call with me, consult, something like that. And I was like, if that was me and I wanted to work with Cynthia and I can't afford to work with her, I would buy enough to get me through the next 6 months. I shouldn't have said that out loud, should I? Maybe I have to edit that out. But I said that to Eric this morning. I was like, wow, that's really not a lot. $47, like that's nothing. You're not even paying for it, really. So anyway, now that I've said it, I'm going to regret it, aren't I? So they do expire, But what you can do is book them before the expiration, right? You can book them in advance. Do you see what I'm saying? Book them in advance. Get a couple and put them together and have an hour session with me and get a full, right? Whatever. I don't know. There are, like Eric's saying, well, you should have, you didn't say any of that. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe there's a reason for that. But, you know, I got to live too. So don't everybody do it. But, you know, I'm open if I'm thinking that would be clever. That's how my mind works. I'm like, well, if I can't afford it, maybe I could, buy a couple and, I'm buying a couple for the 3 sessions with Cynthia to work on something, right? It might be, yeah. Anyway, so I don't feel I'm going to regret it because I feel a bit joyful about it, right? Anyway, that's just my personality. I'm like, when my kids used to do things when they were teenagers, I won't say I always caught them out, but I caught them out on some great thinking. Let's put it that way. And because I guess I'm intuitive, but also I was a teenager and I can remember what I got up to and I can remember how I would get around things, right? And hiding places and like my brain, thank goodness I went for good, not evil, because I think I'd be an awesome criminal, right? I just have a mind that thinks outside of the box. So I catch you, right? I catch you and they're like, but I have to laugh every time I'd catch, it wasn't that many, but I would just laugh because I think, and I'd say to them, you would have got away with it if you'd done this and this and this. But then again, they wouldn't have because I just told them what I would then look for if they tried to do it differently next time, right? Anyway, I'm mucking around a bit, but it sort of makes me laugh when I think about, I don't know, anyway. So let's get back to it. What were we talking about? Spirit whisperer, spirit, consciousness, how we are in the world, these different levels. So, we could go human whispering, spirit whispering, and the more how you are in the world in the way of like your beliefs and conditioning patterns impacting how you then connect and relate with your partners or potential partners, or even getting to a point, maybe some people may not want a partner, and in that case you'll probably get one because you don't want one, but that's another story again, right? It's like working to be intimate with yourself on all of those levels. Yourself, the physical, how you treat yourself, how you are with yourself, and you will be able to see when you start to, and some of you will have blind spots, you just will. And I do these little games with myself. I call them games because it's like fun for me to say, all right, well, what do I want to catch in myself this week or next week or whatever? And I'll tell people around me. And I used to say this with students in my language, how I'd speak when I do live, in-person teaching. And I say, all right, I'm working on this. And if you hear me say this word, can you just raise your hand or say it out loud or whatever. So I'd start to teach. And I'm telling you, it only takes 2 to 3 times and you stop that behavior. When it's so I was looking at microaggressions, right? I'm like, I'm honing in, always refining. Like there will not be a day where I am not refining and polishing my pebbles. Right? Your stone in the river, that analogy, and the water going over the stones makes them smooth and all that. But in some ways, that's many of you are working on that. right? Some of you are going beyond that. Yeah, I want to go somewhere, but I'm like, I think we'll keep that for another day. There's another analogy about the mirror and being able to see into the mirror or not see into the mirror. Anyway, I'm going to leave that to the side and let you contemplate that. But I guess it's about, you know, around how we perceive, how we think we want something. So if we're working towards light, you cannot have light without the dark. If you're a human being, so there's people saying, you know, light workers and whatnot, and to some degree, I agree. I agree with everything, to some degree, because I can see all of it in it. I also understand that the human experience is built on fear, and the acknowledgement, awareness, mastery of fear, we then build to the next level. It's like building. Like, why are we here? And I guess that's the mystic ministry teachings going into that realm, right? Of why we're here, how humans got here, and all of that. And again, there's all sorts of beliefs and ways that we're conditioned to make it acceptable that we're here on this earth. Absolutely everything you do and say is helping you make everything, your life, acceptable to yourself. Absolutely everything. So as I say that, I'm saying it to me too. I am a human and I am here on this earth, right? I'm not some bot talking to you. So think about that. Everything is fear. And some of you will be challenged by this. Awesome. Everything is fear. Everything we do comes from some nervous system movement, connection, wiring to do or not do, to touch or not touch, to say or not say. What makes you, when you move towards somebody you like and you would like to talk to, but the fear comes up, so you move away? What makes you move away? We could say the fear or the vulnerability, but what really is it? If we looked at that and dropped it in, we could get to really the core of what that is. We could also just scan the energy and find out. But you see, there's all these different ways. But is it because of something, some unmet need when you were an infant that you don't even remember because it was encoded through procedural memory, like, how your family was, right? So you don't even know that if that family was, I guess, outside of the status quo, whatever that, right? Or was impacting the child detrimentally, that child wouldn't even know until it has something else to look at and go, oh, think about that. A child that grows up being, I guess we could even say, completely loved and adored, right? Let's use that one, because you thought I was going to go the other way, didn't you? Right? Completely loved and adored, doesn't know anything else, and then goes out into the world and their friend is treated in a completely different way. They can't comprehend it. and then you can swap that around. You know, where I grew up, one of my very, very good friends, I was this chameleon, I guess. I fit in everywhere, but nowhere. It's just the same as it is now. But you know how you have all the cliques in high school, but even in primary school, but in high school mainly, and there'd be like the blonde pretty girls, and there'd be the sporty girls, and then there'd be the like the rebel girls, and then there'd be the you know, the ones that would smoke pot behind the school fence, or run across the road and smoke under the bush, or come to school drunk, or whatever. Right? There was all these different. I was part of all of them, and I would choose who I was going to hang out at lunch, recess, whatever. Like it was like it was like so I saw everything. And one of my good friends, and it was interesting because I had my very good friends were like the almost like the leaders of each group. So I had, you know, my friend who was as rough as guts, and I loved her. She was a tiny little thing, but feisty. And her parents were into drugs and were drug dealers and stuff, and you know, were abusive and all sorts of things. And I I didn't understand that because my parents didn't even spank me, right? I didn't have my parents weren't around. Like I was just a wild child, so I could do whatever I wanted to. So I would be going to, and then my other very, very good friend, right up till I left school, her family won the lottery like 2 or 3 times, and they really had some money, and they had horses and all that. So when I went to their house, it was like, whoa. And you get the picture. You don't know how your family, you know, before going to school, like you might go to, I guess if you went to daycare or something like that, right? But you just know what you know, and then you start to look outside of yourself. By that time, you're already encoded, right? That's what I was saying about the world being in this subliminal trance, right? And not addressing their fears. So think about this, because this is I feel it's a very important point. It's something, I'll give you a little hint of what I talked to Clara about yesterday, which I think she's putting out this week or next week. So it's before the series starts, so you can have a look at that. But I can't remember if it was the first one or the second one, because we talked for a couple of hours, and she it was in there. It was it's supposed to be off camera, but we recorded it anyway. She was saying, what would it be like? Because we were talking about trauma, and we're talking about some of this sort of stuff. She said, what would it be like if everybody was addressing their trauma? And I said, that's you know, yes, awesome. And what would it be like if we just acknowledged that we were scared, that we had fear? Not everybody has trauma, big T trauma. I would say pretty much everybody has some sort of relational attachment need not met. Even though, so I worked with many wealthy families, and the wealth isn't the issue, but it just so happens, because we think, oh, if they're poor, they must be miserable and all the rest of it. Like traveling the world, living in Africa, all these places of, you know, in India, and the joy and love in the most impoverished families would blow your mind, and some of you have probably seen that. And I loved being with people who their wealth was their love and kindness and compassion. That was their wealth. You know, there was a story a friend of mine told me about this little boy. His name was King, and it was in, I believe it was Thailand, and he was one of the children that would go through the rubbish dumps to live. And I think he was about 8 years old. But his name, I can feel it as I'm saying it, his name represented how he was in the world. Because yes, they were impoverished, and yes, they were struggling and all the rest of it, but when you spoke to him, he was love, he was joy, he was the king of his life, right? And then we go to families that these children have what we think is everything, but these families that are over parenting and over give, it's just over. And then you've got the neglect, which is the under. Those two, research has shown the behaviors of those children are the same, and it's disruptive. It's a disruptive sort of attachment on some level. Like I'm generalizing, right? I'm generalizing. But we see that. So we talk about good enough parenting. It's that centerpiece. It's like you're going to make mistakes and it's okay. So how are we being programmed? How are we encoding? How are we receiving? And there's so much more. It's the nurture-nature debate, once again. There's so much more to what I'm talking about, but just to give you an indication, right? So there's this humanness to you, to me. And if we addressed our fear, so the program is, the subtitle is Vulnerable and Victorious. And many of you, so a contemplation, if you would like, and let me know. You can private message me if you want, or put it on the chat. Do you, or have you, when someone says, oh, are you afraid? Or are you scared? And you say, oh, I'm not scared, or I'm not. I saw someone post yesterday actually, and she was saying, I don't get scared, or I don't, fear is not a thing that, and I'm like, in my head, really? Really? Is that true? Is that a true, like maybe it was in a generalized way. You think about it, that when your nervous system is activated in some way, there's fear there. There's a, let's change the language, okay, right? Let's change the language. There is a stimulation because there's been some change. And so depending on our experiences, our beliefs and our conditionings, how we're encoded, how, our memories laid down and all the rest of it, is how we respond to it. And so when you can see that and you can say, oh, I'm scared. I feel it. I feel something. So you can just say, I feel something. If you don't want to use the word fear. But this is the point that I was getting to yesterday. If we were able to acknowledge the fear rather than try to get away from it or try to repress it or try to just beam our light to it, right? There is more light in the darkness. Go into that fear and you will expand exponentially. Try it. And if you're not feeling able to do it on your own, because there may be trauma or a lot of emotional dysregulation, then book in with me, or go and see somebody else, or be with a friend that you trust to support you to be able to see where your blind spots are. You cannot see them if you keep pushing that away. You're only living half of who you are because you love and fear, right? You're all of it. So we're pushing it away. And I understand why, because that's what I was doing too until I was shown. I was like, so now I talk fear all the time, right? I might language it differently now and then. So today I'm driving by myself, first time ever, and which is, I mean, you know, there's fear. There's fear. I can choose to chicken out and not go. So I'll let you know if I end up there, because I actually don't know yet. But to add on to that, Eric upgraded his phone. So I have a phone that where I don't have a phone here, that if I unplug it from the power, it dies. So it has to be plugged in for me to have a phone that works here, my American phone, right? So he gave me his old phone and we transferred it last night, but it's going to take 48 hours. So not only am I driving somewhere I've never been before, on the wrong side of the road, in a car that isn't mine, I'm going without a phone. So if I happen to, right, now I laugh about it, but what I've decided is, I know there's fear there, but I grew up without a phone. I grew up with a car. It was a little Subaru 1600. I think it was 1600. And I would drive nearly 40 minutes. This is when I was in the army too, right? And my car was a clunker, right? It was a good car, but it needed a new fuel pump and a few other things. But now I learned how to maintain and service trucks and vehicles. But in those days, because you know I'm over the other side of the hump now, when I was in my 20s, nothing was computerized. So I could do everything. If you broke down at the side of the road, I could get you going, right? I could, all sorts of things. Fault finding. I learned that in the army. So there you go. Thank you. I, had to learn that on all the different vehicles. Now, I can't do anything because it's all computerized. So something goes. Anyway, but my point being that I would drive that car, and if it stopped, if I had to stop, the car would stop and I'd have to get out, pop the bonnet with my screwdriver, tap the fuel pump to get the fuel going so that I could get the car going to start again. And that was my life for a while, because I didn't have the money to fix my car and I needed a new fuel pump. I knew how to get it going again, but I needed a new part. I couldn't, do you get what I mean? So often things like that would happen. So I've lived a very full life, and, I've broken down in the middle of Africa at the side of the road with bloody, elephants crossing and, all sorts of things. Like I've been in, I've been covered in when it hits the fan numerous times. So I laugh at it because I'm like, oh, well, if anything happens, I mean, it's only a half-hour drive. I could walk somewhere, I mean, it's semi-rural, so it's not like there's lots of houses and stuff, but I could walk, I'm good. I'm healthy. I'll just wear my runners. Something happens, but it's not. I know it's going to be fine. My point being, all these things are going to come up. I can say, yes, I'm tentative. I feel vulnerable, but that's not going to stop me doing it. Do you understand what I mean? Doing a series again. I haven't done a series for 2 years. So getting back into all the work that goes into, creating it, and writing all the copy and creating, like you can see the image behind me, not on Instagram, but on the others, creating the images, everything, all the emails that you're going to get with all the videos and everything. I got to write those. It's pretty much all done. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of work in there. Now, I could freak out about that because I'm also about to go away for a week for a conference to learn, you know, in a place and you know, all this sort of stuff. It's layer upon layer. It's the same as you. You think about all the things that you have to do in the world, right? Or that you think you have to do, because really, what do you really have to do? That's for somebody that I can't see is on here, but you know, it's like what you say yes and no to. Is to stop. Do I really need to do this? Am I just saying yes because it's my pattern of behavior? Right. Some people may need that reminding, right? Do I really need to go? Or do I just feel like this is the thing. So this might be helpful for some of you, especially around holidays. So for many of you, it's Thanksgiving holidays and maybe some other holiday, I don't know, around the world. You know, I'm Australian. We don't do Thanksgiving, even though I'm here. You know, it's like, you know, okay. What's that about? And the history of it and all that. You know, it's not my culture. But many of you it is, and it's a big deal, apparently, right? So I don't know, for you, Mercedes, do you do anything over there? It's not a holiday over there, no. So, but it will be maybe around December. I don't know. Everybody's different beliefs and different. Some of you, you know, have already done big holidays and whatnot because, you know, there's all sorts of festivities and whatnot. My point being, what do you say yes to and what do you say no to? What do you go to and what do you, right? And why do you say yes? Do you feel into it? So I started doing this many years ago, and some of you will, you know, glaze over, but some of you will be like, oh my goodness, I need this. And it will possibly put some noses out of joint, but is your life here on this planet to keep everybody's nose straight? You know, are you here to be the pleasure tool of every other human on the, right? Maybe you are. Awesome, good on you. But I think majority, a lot of you, you're trying to live your best life. You're trying to live your best life, your best life. What's your best life? Do you even have a conception of that? So saying yesterday in class, we had Psi class yesterday, and you know, we were talking about, here, I've got my notes here. Who do I want to be? Every day, who do I want to be? If I'm living my best life, who do I want to be? It's not what I do for like all these other reasons. It's like, did I live in a way that's in aligned with who I want to be? So for me, that's my virtues, my integrity, right? Do I do what I say? I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but this is an aspect of like, rather than going, okay, I don't know, I'm trying to think of examples, but it's different for everybody. But a simple thing is like, every single day, did I live my best life? Am I working towards who I want to be? And you might be like, well, who do I want to be? Or who am I? Right? Who am I? What am I? How am I? You know, you may not ever get a full answer to that, right? Everyone's different. But just the contemplating and having something to work towards, you know, some sort of practice or some way of being. You might choose one way of being a month or a week or just now. Like, how do you want to be? So it might be, so I saw Mercedes' face when I said microaggressions. So, right? So I'm like, what are microaggressions? They're different. I mean, I don't know the formal you know, dictionary thing of what they are. But it's like when you have a fear and it's a little projection onto somebody else, just in a tone or a, you know, it could be any of the isms, you know, or how, right, where your biases, you may not know your biases, and then when you're speaking, you say something that's offensive, but you've got no comprehension that it's offensive. It's, you see, it can be really difficult, and if you're scared to speak because you're going to offend somebody, you're not going to speak. You're not going to, right? If I worried about offending somebody with something that I said, like a blind spot, I would never speak. I wouldn't show up. If I say something wrong, or you know, or touch on somebody's sore spot, or whatever, I apologize if I do, because it's not who I am to hurt, right? But I am human, and I don't know what all your sore points are, or where you're from, or culturally what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, right? Like even talking about languages, some way, like we could say certain words in English that will be horrendously offensive in certain cultures because it means something completely different. So we can't, do you see what I mean? Acknowledging, all right, that might be there for some of you. I don't want to go to a family gathering because I don't want to get into an argument because such and such great Aunt Betty's going to ask me about something, and I don't know how to talk with her, with, you know, in my truth, without creating some big, right? Well, who do you want to be in that moment? How do you want to be in that moment? Do you want to be compassion? Do you want to be love? Like, we don't need to think about, just as a touching stone for some, I guess. So what came in was, when you have family members or friends that when you bring up maybe what you do in the world triggers them, or something like that. So what I'm getting at is, I can see that you're going to talk to somebody and you want to be heard, you want to be acknowledged for what you're doing in the world. They're not receiving you, right? They're not hearing you, and if they do, it triggers something. Now, you could look at, were you heard in your family? Is this something ongoing? So going back to, were your needs met? And does that trigger link to the need that was unmet in the family of origin? It may be the same family and they're still doing the same thing, but that's why it's triggering, because it's a need that's unmet. So there's a relationship break there somewhere, right? So it becomes a trigger or a frame that can take you out a little. So I'm not saying don't speak your truth. I mean, that's a whole teaching in itself. Like, some of you know, these there's these, I guess we can subdivide them in some ways of, the people closest to you that you feel comfortable sharing, right? And then the next level and the next level, and the people that are way out there, maybe in the third level from, from the hand, outside of your boundary. It doesn't matter whether they know you or not, whether they hear you or not. Like, there's people listening now, or I guess if you're still listening, maybe you're interested, but if you're not, you would have gone long ago, right? Or you have some questions, or it's like this is different for you, so you're curious about it. So there's a couple of things there, right? Can you see it or not? Can you see that there's you wanting to be heard, possibly, or whatever your need is that you're wanting to be met in relationship? And then there's like, does that come from the past? Is that why it's got a hit on it? Where's that emotional, are you able to regulate that emotion and just let it be? Or are you pushing to be heard? Do you see? So to reflect on that, and then we can have compassion for them, for others, that they don't understand it's okay, and not be patronizing about it. It's okay. When I was younger, I'd be like, I just want you to understand. Like when I started to get all this information, and I'm like, I just want to, like, especially with the self-healing, like if people knew how to heal themselves, like, so when I worked for an organization doing trauma work, but I was going around and teaching energy medicine to all the psychologists and social workers and foster carers and my bosses and all these. Like, I'd just go around and teach them, or they come in from visiting someone and they'd be like exhausted, and I'd be like, oh, try this or try that. Like, it was like, and then I realized, oh, they're not asking me. I'm just that sort of, like, if I see that you're struggling or you're holding your head, I'll be like, can I help you? Like, well, you could try this or that. And then I realized, oh, they're not asking. So then I went that next step back. I just took a step back and I let people know. I wrote a newsletter every week for the organization and taught them an energy technique. So then they could come to me if they wanted, or they could read the article, right? And now I don't do anything unless you come to me and ask me. None of my goddamn business what's going on with any of you, right? So it's sort of like, it's not exactly the same, but I'm saying, you are who you are in the world, and it's like, if we're trying to put that on and say, hey, this is who I am, I need people to see me and all of that, which we need that to some degree to fill a hole. But you can start to work on that. We can. I say you, it's the royal you know what I'm saying? It's the royal you, or the royal we, they say, right? How we can give that to ourselves, how we can fulfill ourselves, so that we're not craving from or wanting from anyone or anything. That's freedom. That's a superpower, right? So I didn't get to the I've lost the word, the sensitivities. So how sensitivities become your superpower. But you'll just have to come to the series and find out. Just a little bit on that. Let me just read these. I think of the people now who say they grew up poor, but they never realized how poor their family was at the time. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I remember my sister. We would laugh because we used to have these little, like, about our family and how we were and all the rest of it. And now I look at my family, and the thing with my family is that we said it how it was. You knew where you stood, and there was no tippy-toeing around anything. And in comparison to other families, it felt like there was something wrong with us. But now we sort of laugh about it because everything is sort of out on the table. And that might feel uncomfortable, right? But I would rather be uncomfortable in that truth than it being hidden and you can feel it anyway, and it builds. And this is what children do. They will feel things and make up their own story that's most of the time worse than the actual story itself. Right? I know that. I worked with children for many years, and I was a child and I've grown children, right? And I have grandchildren. If we're not sharing information with them, age appropriate, right? They will make up their own story or be told by people that, corrupt or, other children that have no idea, right? So if mum and dad are getting a divorce, it's not spoken about, but the kids have been feeling it for probably a year before you actually even got to that decision, and they're making up because they've got no other way of coping. They need help in young children, I'm talking. They can't soothe themselves. They need co-regulation. They need help from the primary caregivers, mum and dad or whoever's bringing them up, to regulate. And if they can't regulate, they then try to self-soothe, which could be through behavior, through self-soothing, through self-medicating later on, right? So parents, because they're scared, oh, what? There's that fear again. Don't say what's going on. Children, even if you tell children, it's not your fault, we love you, all that sort of stuff, blah, 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 whatever people tell their kids, right? Those children, little ones, are still going to take it on to some degree because they can't see outside themselves fully. The world is still around about them, in our development, this, early childhood. So this is where a lot of our awesome stuff that people pay me for happens, right? It's our beliefs and conditionings. And so if we, going back to that question that you maybe forgot that I was answering, I should write storybooks, shouldn't I? Just write storybooks about stuff. Tell stories. If we were able to be in that discomfort of our fear and speak, I'm feeling vulnerable right now. I'm uncomfortable about this, but I need you to know. Rather than if I didn't, if I wasn't self-aware. So even like I was thinking last night, I was so tired last night. I haven't been that tired for a long time, but it was a big day. And it was about 8 o'clock and I could feel that I just didn't feel myself, right? I should have gone to bed then. But my little one doesn't like going to bed. I don't know if any of you out there don't like going to bed. I do not like going to bed. I am like a little infant. I don't recall my mum saying how I was when I was a kid, but I don't like to nap. Even if I'm tired in the day, I don't like to nap. I will push through it, right? It'll be the end of me, I'm sure, right? I just need to give in and go for a nap. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's something in my childhood about going down for a nap. I would not be surprised. I haven't looked at it. Thank you. I'll pay you later, right? But it's just interesting that I fight sleep. I fight sleep. And if I do have to go to bed and I still really don't want to, I may listen to something or usually I'll listen because if I'm watching something, I don't usually like watching stuff, but I might put music on or whatever and then off I go. But so if we were addressing our fear, right? Okay, what's my fear around napping? I could say, well, that means I won't sleep at night, which is sort of true too, right? I tend not to need a lot of sleep, but I do need sleep. Everybody does, pretty much. But is there a fear around that? So I could start looking at that now, right? Never thought about it before until last night. I was like, why am I fighting this? I literally felt like a little kid knowing they were so tired, but the parent had to say, it's time for bed now. Come on, nighttime routine, winding down, all of that. And I was like, but I really want a cup of tea. I was so tired. You see what I mean? It's like kids, what do? Oh, just one more drink of water. Oh, I need to go to the toilet. I don't know if any of you, right? But, looking after my grandkids, oh, I just need to go to the toilet. Well, you've just been to the toilet. I need to go again. See, I laugh. That's my, it's probably not always great. But I'm like, because I know what they're doing. And I'm like, oh, that's clever. Right? It's just like, I just see the brilliance in there, trying not to do what, we're trying to make them do. And so anyway, it's this dance. So if we can, so are you open to looking at where you're scared today? It's a little challenge. Are you open to looking at where you feel something in your body, and then see if you can catch it and go, oh, is that a fear? You don't need to know the ins and outs of it, just recognizing it. Oh, there's a fear there. Or if you're talking to somebody and you can, you'll feel the unspoken fear. This is my point. And that unspoken fear is what, I was going to say corrupts. Yes, that too. But starts to create our society of this subliminal, hovering shadow of fear, because we're not acknowledging it, so it grows. What are we acknowledging? We're acknowledging all the things. So here again, I know I've been going for a long time. I'm going to wind down in a minute. It's like going to bed. I've got to wind down, right? Right? We're saying we want peace in the world. We want love in the world. We want all of this stuff. No. We are peace. We are love. It's already here. It's acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. I mean, I just saw a contradiction in what I said, but it's paradox. Do you get it? It's like saying, when we bring, it's like doing the internal channel, those of you that know that, and we're bringing in something that we want, right? We're saying, yes, I don't have that. That's not how to work it. We can say, thank you for what I already have, right? So when we're really desiring something, that gratitude and compassion and thank you for what I had, thank you for the love and the peace that I do have, right? And just sit in that, rather than the grasping and the it's an unmet need of some sort. Fulfill yourself with that need, and then move forward in the world. Just see what these little changes can do for you. It's like, you have it. It's there. The fears are what are the fear. It's like when I'm talking about fear, great love comes up. It's like how you love fear. Because it's all part of the same thing. Okay, this could be something that can be offensive, I guess. I'll say it in the least offensive way, but still get my point across, because this is just how God, the beloved Supreme Source Consciousness, is neither male or female, yet is. Here on earth, in this polarized existence, right? That aspect of the beloved is fear. The Great Mother, the Shekinah, the blue energy. And what is that? What is that? That's the aspect of God that can be here on earth. So again, we're going into mystic ministry stuff here, but that then we join with in intimacy and build that relationship, build that I guess the relationship, that intimacy, and then we can rise. That is the marriage and the union of heaven and earth. It's not just the two. We have to, you see how there's these different levels or not? So if we're not, so just think about what I just said. Like, man, you can contemplate on this the rest of your life, really. And I have, and I will. That energy of fear, the drop of the feminine is fear. And if we are pushing her away, pushing it away, that aspect of all there is that can commune with us as a human, then what do we got? We're going love, 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 love. We've got there's no connection. You cannot, the marriage will not be consummated. Let's just say it that way. Does that sort of make, I don't know if you've got a little something out of that, but sometimes it's like I use this language, but so that I'm because you're all at different levels of consciousness, right? But ultimately what I just said is how it is. It really is at that level, that the human vessel is here. So you, me, Cynthia, this vessel is here, right, to contain the light in the vessel, right? Just like there's different levels of consciousness, we can say there's different levels of light. And I did touch on this with Clara as well in a little bit in the series also, but what's before the light? What's before the light? So we have what's before the light, and then we have the dot of light, and then the expansion of that light, and then coming into this world, right? And then the lower levels of light reaching back up. And there's a process in that. And you can't do it with one or the other. It's both. That's why in the tree of life, the Malchut, or the royal crown, is the royal crown, the royal kingdom, because the bottom and the top, in their beautiful dance, right, the lower becomes the upper in the next phase. So which one's up, which one's down, which one's more important than the other? You can't have one without the other. You can have what's beyond that, because that is prior to creation. The no-thingness and the all-thingness, the Ein Sof means no thing, is before the light, which is, did you see? And then we see bits of light and we call it God, or you wouldn't name and label, right? But all of those aspects are part of the no thingness and all thingness, and you are an aspect of that too. So if we're only dancing with one speck, well, then we're only dancing with one speck, but we're saying that one speck is everything. And I'm just saying, let's just take a breath. I know I've gone off on a little tangent here, but we'll finish. We'll finish. It's because I'm looking at you, and you draw it out of me, right? So anyway, people on Instagram may be going, what on earth is this woman on? I'm on the Great Mother, the Great Divine, and Mother and Father. That's what I'm on, and the union of those into all that there is, right? Our conscious evolution. So I'll leave you with that, and maybe write that down. Make a little card just on fear and some of the words they said, and just feel into that. Or just go and take, like, what is fear to you? What is that word? Or being scared. If I'm scared, why has that been a bad thing? Oh, don't be scared. It's all right. What if I said, be scared, it's all right? It's all right to be scared. It's part of us. It can be what fuels us. And as we, so I was going to go into the sensitivities, but go to spiritwhisperer.online and sign up for the free series where we talk about all of this sort of stuff and more. And the last day, there's a live, so you can come and discuss the series with me and ask questions and, have some fun. We'll do a live wrap up. I think that's on the 10th of December. But if you sign up, you'll get the invite, and you can come and see. And I've made it so that those of you in those where it's really late right now, you'll be able to come, hopefully, if you're not doing something else. So, yeah. Okay, let me just read this and then we'll wrap up. In case of feel vulnerable and do it anyway. It's a case of, I realized today that something that was encoded and affecting me choosing, expressing my desires is the fact that I had to choose between mum and dad in court when parents got divorced. Yeah, and that was over 40 years ago, and realized today, yes. I've seen that too, and the behavior of the children, even as teenagers, like when they've got to go and visit mum or dad, or, and they're trying to keep everybody happy still. And yes. It's like, how can we, and this is what I said actually just recently, not for my kids, but someone else's, I saw it, and I just sort of acknowledged that there was some fear there, and that might be something to acknowledge so that it can be worked with, right? What are these children feeling when they're coming back into one house and then going to another, and so I might see only part of that, right? So acknowledging, the differences in the household and how they might feel and all that. And a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of people that do that now. I know when we were younger, we weren't even told. Like, I remember my parents got divorced and I didn't even know about it till some court thing, and I overheard something and I was like, what? Because my dad was in the Navy, so he was always gone anyway, right? So it wasn't like a big change. It just meant now we went to see him in another house, or he would come and pick us up and we'd go where he used to play jazz. He played jazz as well. He was a musician. So we'd go to these jazz gigs, and anyway, it was on like farms and stuff. It wasn't like, on wineries, on, awesome places where we went horse riding and all sorts of stuff. But that was where we saw our dad then, right? So anyway, all sorts of different things. Yeah, so, all right, well, I hope there was something there that you can take away since you spent your evening or morning with me. I'm going to go and, I guess, get ready for lunch, and then work out how I'm going to overcome this next obstacle. I will let you know how I went. I'm sure it'll be fine. I can drive. I mean, I drive. I've got my truck licenses. It's not like I can't drive. It's just, there's a fear of not remembering which side of the road when I turn into things. When I'm turning, and I've usually got a passenger, and I'll say, it's this side, right? As I'm turning, because it's like the mind. It's interesting when you've been driving a long time and then it's all changed, and then there's different laws that you're like, what? So anyway, I'm putting on my big girl pants and my cap, and I'm going driving by myself without a phone in a strange country. Strange country to me anyway, right? Just like Australia would be strange to them. At least there's no snakes here, right? Or crocodiles or anything else that kills you. So, yeah, and invite your friends to the Spirit Whisperer. If they don't like it, big whoop. It's cool. It doesn't cost anything. Invite your friends. Come over to the Spirit Whisperer Facebook page, right? Most of you probably on there anyway, but that's where I'll be, chatting and more about the cards and stuff, and doing that process. If you wanted to do that, or even just have a chat about something that was mentioned, you can come in there. I'll be inviting the speakers in there as well, so if you've got questions for them, you can ask them, or you can go directly to them. That's fine too. But yeah, so if you have signed up, or if you're listening to this, do that. But you'll get emails that will invite you anyway. So yes, I'm excited. It's we've got another week, I guess. I don't even know what the date is, but it starts on the 1st. But get in there, and again, that VIP, or the golden ticket, where you get all the bonuses. If you want the replay, it's $47. So you get all the replays, but you can book in with a session with me, a consult, ask me something privately, maybe work through something I've talked about here, just to start to touch into, to see, okay, what's going on, scan your energy, right? It's a consult, so however you want to use that time. And what else? Oh, Mercedes, you get access to the subliminal stress. I was thinking of you, see? I was like, I've always you think that I just show up and I don't care. I think about you a lot, all of you, my regulars. I'm like, Mercedes will like this, oh, Rebel will like this, oh, and Dev will like this bit, and right? Because I put together things with you in mind, right? So keep that in mind, because halfway through the series, I will put out a survey, or I'll be asking you what you want more of, because regular people, I always do a live challenge afterwards, and I will want to know what you want to know more about. Okay? So no one knows that yet, but it is sort of my mojo, right? I'll do a series and then I'll do a live challenge, a few weeks after. So I'm going to be asking you, like, what is it you want to know or learn about? These are like workshops. I share a lot in those lives, right? I will give you, I don't hold stuff back. You ask me a question, I will answer you, but it will be teaching you. So, in the realms of what I teach, which is pretty vast, what are the sorts of things that you're wanting to know more about now? And you can start telling me now if you want, because I can also do Facebook Lives on it, right? But sometimes it baffles me, because I'm here saying, I'm here for free. Like, what do you want to know about? I will put something together for you and show up and share it with you, right? Or you can pay hundreds of dollars and come and get a session. I don't know, your choice. I mean, I do like to pay my bills, so that would be nice, but hey, right? Anyway, I'm joking and not joking, right, at the same time. But yeah, invite your friends, share it around, because this is a good series, and this topic of vulnerability and fear, and it being like no one wants to talk about it, and it's like all light and love. I'm not saying not to say, light and love. I am light, but I'm all of it. I'm the dark light. Do you know? I'm off on a tangent again. I'm going to stop, I promise. Dark light, dark plasma is the brightest light there is. When I see the dark plasma, right? Black plasma, or the blackness of the geometries, is what? So all of the ancient texts talk about in some way the darkness, and that there's more light in the darkness, but they'll say it in their way. This is how I say it. This is my direct experience. The dark plasma is it's like in your visual scale, the human visual scale of colors that we can see, you start to go into ultraviolet and then these other dark. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm seeing. Now, when Moses saw, or was speaking with God, he saw him through the darkness. When the angels came, what was it through? The darkness. Beings of high light come through what? The darkness, the black plasma, I call it. Again, I should work for Google. Go Google it. There's not a lot on there. I've Googled it in the past because I was like, what am I seeing and what's all this and everything? It's also how birds, scientists, so I've talked about this for, 15 years or more, how I see the magnetics and how birds and different creatures navigate when they fly south for the winter, or where the north and south is. And I did a small research project on it, and I've posted some of the images that science have, some researchers have come up with what they think birds are seeing, and it's actually the opposite of what I see. So they're very close to nutting that out. But if they came and asked me, I could have told them much more simply, right? Because I hear and see that stuff. So this darkness that we're all scared of, what if what I'm saying was true? Just putting it out there. What if that high light is the dark plasma, and the white is not as, it seems bright, but it's not as bright, right? You'll see it now that I've highlighted it for you, you'll see it. You'll start to see it. You know, somebody will be talking about something or whatever that, anyway, I could go on and on about it. And I have in the past. There's probably videos of me rambling on about the dark light and all the rest of it. It's not, you see, you're going to go, oh, some of you are going to go, oh, that's, you know, the other side, the dark, right? There's love and there's fear. There's light and there's dark. Then there's the dark of the dark. And there's the light of the light. And there's the dark of the light. And there's the light of the dark. So what I'm talking about is the light and the dark. Heaven and earth. End of story. Okay. I shall go now. Otherwise, I'll stay here all day trying not to think about what I have to do. I'm self-soothing via speaking to you all. All right. Much love to you all. And let me know if you have ponderings about what I've said, anything. I mean, I said a lot today. And I'd like to hear your thoughts and, you know, what comes up for you, and maybe what you might have a dream about something. Feel free to share. I love hearing how you receive what I receive and share with you. All right. Until we meet again, may the blessings be. But don't forget spiritwhisperer.online and come and hear our visionary friends and Spirit Whisperer family share with you their vulnerable moments and how they worked through their fears, and sharing tools and techniques that may be something that you'd like in your toolbox. So until then, much love. Okay. See you, ladies. Thanks for showing up. Keep me company. Ciao, ciao.